The restaurant was glowing with soft lights and clinking glasses. Laughter floated through the air as waiters weaved between tables, pouring wine and serving tiny plates of food. Malik stood near the back, holding a glass of red wine he hadn't touched. People smiled at him as they passed. Friends, co-workers, extended family. Tomorrow was supposed to be the happiest day of his life. Then he heard it. It started as a laugh, familiar, sharp. Jenna's voice. She was seated with her mother, Veronica, and a few guests from her side of the family. Malik hadn't seen her slip away from him during the toasts. Now she sat surrounded by people, tossing her head back in laughter. "She used to talk like this, right?" Veronica said, bending her neck and speaking in a mocking accent. "Baby, go and wash your hands before dinner." I mean, what was she? The help. Another round of laughter. "Oh my God, stop!" Jenna giggled, slapping her mum's arm. She'd wear those old sneakers like she was walking a runway. Bless her heart, but she was so ghetto sometimes. Malik froze. He didn't move. Not a blink. Not a breath. The sound of glasses and forks felt distant now. He was staring straight ahead, but his eyes weren't focused. His heart started to beat louder than the music in the background. "She used to mop the hospital floors, didn't she?" Someone else asked. Veronica smiled proudly. "Yes. And now look. Her son is marrying into a family of doctors. Isn't life funny?" Jenna leaned forward. "Well, not anymore if he keeps acting sensitive about it. I mean, she was a janitor, not royalty." Laughter again. Malik's hands shook. The wine glass trembled between his fingers, and he quickly set it down on the table beside him before it slipped. His chest felt tight, like the air in the room had thickened. He wanted to leave, but his legs wouldn't move. His mother had died 5 years ago. Cancer. She had worked night shifts, cleaned office buildings and hospital floors, and skipped meals just to buy him sketchbooks when he was in school. She never complained, never asked for anything back. And here they were, mocking her like she was a joke. Jenna, the woman he thought he knew. Veronica, who always smiled too hard. The guests who laughed without even knowing her name. Something inside Malik cracked. Not loud. Quiet, like a glass breaking behind closed doors. His grief twisted into something heavier. Shame. Anger. A sadness so deep it didn't even feel like sadness anymore. He slowly turned and walked toward the door, his face calm but his world shaking beneath him. Malik grew up in a small apartment on the east side of town. It was just him and his mother, Diane. She worked long hours cleaning buildings, offices, schools, hospitals. She would come home tired, her feet sore, her hands rough from scrubbing floors. But she always made time for him. Even if she had only a few minutes before bed, she would sit with him while he did homework, or tell him stories about how proud she was of him. They didn't have much, but Malik never felt poor. His mother gave him everything she could: warm meals, clean clothes, and a heart full of love. She believed in him more than anyone ever had. She saved every extra penny to buy him sketch pads and pencils, even when it meant skipping her own meals. Malik loved to draw buildings, bridges, and cities. His dream was to become an architect and build something beautiful, something that would last. He made it. He worked hard, studied harder, and eventually earned a scholarship. Years later, he became a licensed architect, working for one of the top firms in the city. But Diane never got to see it. She passed away from cancer before he finished his first big project. That loss never fully healed. He missed her every day. Malik met Jenna at a work event hosted by his firm. She walked in, wearing confidence like perfume, elegant, well-spoken, full of energy. She was different from anyone he'd ever known. She came from money, old money. Her father was a well-known heart surgeon, and her mother came from a long line of lawyers and business owners. At first, Malik felt out of place around her, like he didn't belong. But Jenna had a way of making him feel like he did. She listened when he spoke, laughed at his jokes, and seemed genuinely interested in his life. They started dating, and she introduced him to her world. Private clubs, weekend getaways, art shows. It was a life he never imagined for himself. Still, there were small cracks. Her mother, Veronica, always greeted him with a smile that never reached her eyes. She would make little comments like, "You speak so well," or "You've done quite well for yourself, considering your background." Malik brushed it off. He told himself she was just old-fashioned, that things would get better with time. Now, they were only days away from the wedding. Jenna's family had taken over the planning. The guest list was full of doctors, CEOs, politicians, people Malik barely knew. The venue was a luxury resort. the menu filled with foods he couldn't pronounce. Everything was perfect on paper, but inside, Malik felt like a guest in his own life. The suit he would wear had been picked by Veronica. The music, the flowers, even the cake, none of it had anything to do with him or his mother. There was no mention of Diane in the program, no photo of her at the welcome table. When he suggested including something small to honor her, Jenna said, "This isn't about the past. It's about our future." Malik kept telling himself that love was enough, that Jenna chose him, and that was what mattered. But lately, he wasn't so sure. Something felt off, like he was shrinking into someone he didn't recognize, all to fit into a life that wasn't really his. He smiled through the rehearsals, nodded at the right times, and tried to ignore the growing weight in his chest. He told himself that once the wedding was over, things would feel normal, that he would find his place, that love would fix the distance he felt. But deep down, something inside him was already starting to crack. After the rehearsal dinner ended, guests started heading to their cars or back to their hotel rooms. Laughter still hung in the air, but for Malik, everything felt quiet and heavy. He hadn't touched his food. He had only sat through the rest of the night with a tight smile, heart pounding, pretending everything was fine. As soon as the crowd thinned, he asked Jenna to step outside with him. They walked to a quiet part of the garden behind the restaurant, away from the music and lights. She looked at him with a soft smile. "What's wrong, babe?" she asked, brushing a bit of lint off his jacket like nothing had happened. Malik's jaw was tight. He looked at her, trying to see the woman he thought he loved, but all he could hear was her voice laughing at his mother. "Did you really mean what you said tonight? About my mum?" Jenna blinked, then gave a small laugh. "Oh, that? Come on, Malik, it was just a joke. My mum was being dramatic. You know how she is." He stared at her. "You called my mother the help. You said she sounded ghetto, that she was embarrassing." "It wasn't serious," she said, crossing her arms. "We were just messing around. You're taking it way too personally." Malik took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Would you laugh if someone joked about your dad's cancer? About him lying in a hospital bed, wasting away?" Jenna frowned. "That's different. How?" Malik asked. "My mum worked her whole life so I could be here. She gave up everything for me." Jenna looked annoyed now. "My father was a respected surgeon, Malik. Your mother scrubbed his floors." Malik froze. The words cut through him like a knife. For a few seconds, he didn't say anything. He just stared at her, trying to understand how the woman standing in front of him could say something so cold, so cruel. He had thought she understood him, thought she respected his journey, thought she loved where he came from, even if it wasn't shiny and perfect. But now, in that quiet garden, he knew the truth. "I can't marry you," he said, his voice flat. Jenna laughed like she didn't hear him right. "Wait, what?" "I said I can't marry you," Malik repeated. "It's over." Her mouth dropped open. "Malik, stop. You're being ridiculous." "I'm being honest," he said. "I can't build a future with someone who disrespects my past. My mother was the strongest person I ever knew, and you laughed at her. You let people mock her memory like it was nothing." Jenna's eyes filled with tears. "So what? You're just going to walk away from everything we planned? The wedding is in 3 days." Malik nodded slowly. "Yes, I'd rather be alone than marry someone who looks down on the woman who raised me." Back inside the restaurant, whispers started spreading as people saw Malik storm out. Jenna followed, crying, trying to grab his arm. Veronica appeared with her usual smug look. "You'll regret this," she said. "We've spent hundreds of thousands on this wedding. You'll be hearing from our lawyer." Malik didn't even look back. He walked down the steps, loosened his tie, and got into his car. The suit he wore felt too tight, like it belonged to someone else. The life he was about to live felt fake. As he drove away into the night, past streetlights and empty sidewalks, Malik didn't feel happy. He didn't feel strong or proud. He just felt free. Malik packed his things and left the apartment he once shared with Jenna. He didn't have a plan. He just knew he couldn't stay in that world any longer. For the first time in years, he drove back to the neighborhood where he grew up. The streets were older now, the buildings more worn, but something about it still felt like home. He stayed in a small guest room above a barbershop owned by Mr. Rhodes, an old friend of his late mother. Mr. Rhodes had known Malik since he was a boy, always offering snacks and quiet wisdom when Malik waited for his mum to finish work. When Malik showed up at his door, suitcase in hand and eyes tired, Mr. Rhodes didn't ask many questions. He just said, "Room's still yours if you want it." The days were quiet at first. Malik walked around the old blocks, remembering the past. Kids still played in the alleyways. Corner shops still sold penny candy. The world hadn't changed much here. Only Malik had. But the peace didn't last long. Jenna's friends began posting things online. Rumors, lies. They called Malik unstable, a coward, and said he threw away a perfect life. Some even said he cheated. Others claimed he was mentally unwell and had breakdowns. He tried to ignore it, but it was everywhere, on his phone, in his emails, even in his professional inbox. A few clients quietly pulled out of projects. No one asked him for his side of the story. One afternoon, Mr. Rhodes gave Malik a small box wrapped in old cloth. "Your mum left these with me," he said. "Told me to give them to you if things ever got too heavy." Inside were letters, dozens of them, handwritten, some stained with tears. Malik sat on the edge of his bed and opened the first one. Her handwriting was neat, careful. One letter said, "If they ever make you feel small, remember you came from someone who gave everything just so you could dream." Another read, "Never let anyone shame you for loving me." Malik couldn't hold back the tears. He cried for a long time, for the pain, for the loss, for his mother, for the parts of himself he had tried to hide just to fit into Jenna's world. A week later, a legal letter arrived from Veronica's lawyers. She wanted the engagement ring back, worth $50,000. Malik almost laughed. He placed the letter aside and didn't answer. Jenna called too, left voicemails, sent texts. "I made a mistake," she said. "We can still fix this." But Malik didn't reply. The part of him that once longed for her voice was now silent. He had seen who she really was, and more importantly, who he really was without her. Instead of wasting time on pain, he began sketching again. He started drawing plans for a small community centre, a safe place for kids, a learning space, a place his mother would have been proud of. He pitched the idea to a local group, and with some funding and support from old neighbours, the project began to move. Malik poured his heart into every part of the building, every wall, every hallway, every corner. He designed it with simple lines, warm light, and soft colours, a place that felt like comfort. One evening, while checking on the almost finished bathrooms, he found a little girl sitting on the floor near the sinks. She was crying quietly, her small hands covering her face. Malik knelt down and asked if she was okay. "I don't want to go home," she whispered. Malik didn't ask why. He just sat beside her for a while. In her quiet sobs, he heard echoes of himself, a scared little boy hiding in the bathroom of a city building while his mother mopped floors late at night. His chest tightened, and for the first time in weeks, Malik let himself cry again. Not out of sadness, but out of something deeper. He had come full circle. He had built something out of the pain. He had taken his grief and turned it into a place where no child would ever have to feel small, scared, or alone. And that, he knew, was the start of healing. The community centre was finally complete. Lights glowed softly from inside the building. Music played gently in the background. People from the neighbourhood, donors, old teachers and friends, all gathered for the grand opening gala. Everyone was dressed nicely, smiling, laughing, enjoying the evening. Malik stood near the back, watching quietly. This place had taken pieces of his heart to build. It wasn't just a building, it was a promise kept to his mother. A speaker was talking about the importance of giving back to the community when Malik noticed a commotion near the entrance. Cameras, flashes, loud voices. Jenna had arrived. She wore a bright red dress, hair perfect, makeup bold. A phone was in her hand, live streaming the entire event to her social media. Her voice cut through the soft music as she walked further inside. "Everyone deserves to know the truth," she shouted. The room fell quiet. Guests turned to look at her. Some gasped, others whispered. Jenna walked up to the front. "Malik Carter," she said, her voice shaking with fake emotion. "You abandoned me. You abandoned our child." Gasps echoed through the room. Phones came out. Cameras clicked. Jenna's face showed fake pain, but her eyes were sharp and cold. "You knew I was pregnant," she continued, "and you just walked away like we meant nothing." Malik stood still for a second. Then calmly, he walked to the microphone. He looked around at the people who had come to support the centre. He saw Mr. Rhodes in the corner, nodding slowly. "I wasn't going to say anything tonight," Malik began, his voice steady. "I wanted this to be about the community, about hope, about honouring someone who gave everything she had so her son could rise." He looked at Jenna. "But since we're talking about truth, Let's tell the whole truth. He turned back to the guests. Yes, Jenna told me she was pregnant. She begged me not to take a paternity test. Said it didn't matter, that we could fix things if I just came back. The room went still. I took the test anyway, Malik said. The child is not mine. People gasped again. A few mouths dropped open. Someone in the back whispered, "Oh my God." Jenna's face twisted, caught between anger and embarrassment. She tried to speak, but Malik raised his hand gently. I don't say this to shame her. I say it because shame has been passed down in silence for too long. He looked around the room again, eyes softer now. My mother was a janitor. She scrubbed floors in this city for 30 years. People laughed at her accent. They looked past her in the hallways. But she never complained. She never lied. She never treated anyone like they were less. He paused and looked down, then back up. And when she died, all I wanted was to make her proud. But I let people into my life who saw her as a joke, who saw me as something to fix. He looked directly at Jenna again. My mother scrubbed floors, but she never lied to my face. The crowd clapped slowly at first, then louder, stronger. Some people stood up, others wiped their eyes. Even the musicians behind the stage nodded quietly. Security gently led Jenna out as she yelled something that no one paid attention to. Malik stepped down from the mic and walked into the crowd. A few people stopped him to say thank you. Others just touched his shoulder in quiet support. The night went on. The music started again. Laughter returned. The moment had passed, but something important had changed. Malik had taken back his voice, his dignity, his truth, and everyone had heard it. The morning of the community center's official opening was warm and bright. Children played outside. Volunteers set up chairs and banners. The building stood tall with a simple sign that read, "The Gloria Carter Center, for Hope, for Home." Malik stood by the front doors in a dark blue suit, holding a small photo of his mother. She was smiling in it, wearing her janitor uniform proudly. He quietly slipped the photo into a frame near the entrance, beneath the words, "In loving memory, the hands that built this dream." The crowd gathered. People from the neighborhood, city officials, and old friends clapped as the ribbon was cut. The center was now open. Inside, the building buzzed with life. There were rooms for after-school programs, free tutoring, therapy sessions, and even art classes. On one wall was a mural of Gloria, broom in hand, standing tall with a soft smile. Later that week, Malik was interviewed on local television. The reporter asked him, "Why did you do this? After all that pain?" He thought for a second, then replied, "Grief doesn't end, but it can build something new. My mother never got to see my success, but now her name will help others rise." The story touched many. Donations poured in. The scholarship Malik created in his mother's name helped 3 young girls get into college that first year. One of them had also lost her mother to cancer. She wrote Malik a letter, "Thank you for making me feel seen." As time passed, the online gossip faded. Jenna disappeared from the public eye. No more posts, no interviews, no statements. People stopped asking about her. The lies she told couldn't survive the truth. Malik returned the $50,000 engagement ring through a courier. No message, no note, just a simple box, sealed and final. His life was quiet now, but full. He met Amara, a school counselor who volunteered at the center. She had a soft laugh, wore simple clothes, and listened with her whole heart. She never asked about Malik's past unless he wanted to share. She met him as he was, not for his money, not for his reputation, but for the way he showed up for others. One afternoon, they sat together watching a group of kids paint in the art room. A little boy showed Malik a picture of a house. It was messy, but full of color. "This is for your mum," the boy said proudly. "She helped make this place." Malik smiled, his eyes stinging with tears. "Yes," he whispered. "Yes, she did." He reached for Amara's hand. She squeezed it gently. No words needed. That night, Malik walked alone through the empty halls of the center. Lights dimmed, echoes quiet. He stopped in front of the mural again, looking up at his mother's face. "I did it, Mom," he said softly, "and I did it our way." For the first time in a long while, his heart felt light. He turned off the lights, locked the doors, and stepped into the evening. Not broken, not bitter, but whole. A man rebuilt, brick by brick, in love, grief, and truth. The community center was quiet now. The sun was setting, and most of the kids had gone home. Their laughter still echoed in the halls, like a soft reminder of joy. Malik sat alone on a bench near the entrance, looking around at the building he had created. He held a small letter in his hands, the last one his mother had written before she passed. The paper was old, but her handwriting was still clear. He had read it many times, but today felt different. With slow, careful hands, he placed the letter into a simple glass frame. He stood up and gently hung it on the wall beside her photo. The letter read, "If they ever make you feel small, remind them, I raised you big." Malik stared at the words for a long moment. He could almost hear her voice, warm and strong. He took a deep breath and smiled. Not a big smile, not one for cameras or applause, just a quiet, peaceful smile. A smile that came from deep inside. He knew life wouldn't always be easy. There would still be hard days. There would still be loss, and maybe even more betrayal. But now, he had something stronger, a sense of peace, of knowing who he was. He wasn't just the man who walked away from a wedding. He was the man his mother raised. He stood there for a little longer, letting the silence settle around him like a blanket. Then he turned, walked down the hallway toward the back door, and stepped out into the night. The stars were out. The world was still turning, and Malik Carter was finally whole. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Don't forget to like, share, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more powerful stories. See you in the next one. Bye.